Greetings of peace, love, abundance, joy upon you from the Most High God and the begotten Son, Jesus the Christ. We have come across a rather old book titled The Crucifixion by an eyewitness, a letter written 7 years after the crucifixion by John Emmett Richardson, born 1853, died 1935. We have read in the comments below, the reviews below, that it's a load of rubbish, that it's fake, it's propaganda and all sorts, but that hasn't stopped us from looking at the content of the book to prove otherwise, or determine that it's fake or rubbish. Crucifixion by an eyewitness, a letter written 7 years after the crucifixion by a personal friend of Jesus in Jerusalem to an Esseer brother in Alexandria. So we're not too sure what that is, but we're thinking it might be a member of the Essene movement that was in Alexandria, Egypt, or, well, we don't think this is right, that it's a seer that can see, like a psychic, into the future, all that sort of stuff, predict things. So we were going with the first one, the Esseer, who was a member of the Essenes, who was in Alexandria, Egypt. Supplemental Harmonic Series, Volume 2, 6th edition, published around 1915, and apparently this is a picture and the oldest known found. This picture is the oldest known found on a tomb in the catacombs. Was that Egypt or somewhere like that? Not really sure. Doesn't really give us much more detail. We tried to find information about the author, but it was very elusive. It was addressed to the students and friends of the great school. We did find that information, that it was a spiritual school, etc. Contents: frontispiece, introduction by TK. We couldn't find out who this person was, and preface by the translator, etc., etc. So we were curious. Introduction. A brief explanation is due to the reader before he proceeds to a perusal of the most interesting letter which follows the preface to this little volume. The English translation of the ancient Latin copy of the letter was made by a German. Yes, a bit suspect there. It is evident on every page of his translation that he was not sufficiently acquainted with the English language to make a good English translation. Second, there. This suggestion has reference to the literary form of his work as a translator and not to the substance of the text. There can be no doubt that he has preserved the meaning of the original manuscript with remarkable fidelity, but in many places he has made use of English expressions which are crude and quite out of keeping with our present understanding of cultured literary form. So somebody's probably found this and translated it into English from the Latin copy of the letter, which was made by a German, translated by German. For this reason, the author has deemed it advisable to revise his rendition of the text in such manner as somewhat to remove the rough corners of his work and present to the reader the exact substance of the ancient letter in a little better English form. In no sense has the author changed its meaning, and in many places has refrained from substituting his own method of expression, where his rendition is more or less crude, lacking in elegance of diction. His revision of this person's translation, the German's translation, therefore is not as complete as it might have been made had his method of expression been discarded entirely. The author's purpose has been to place the exact substance of the ancient letter before the reader in such language as to make it entirely intelligible, and at the same time preserve as much of the translator's own form of expression as possible. He believed he succeeded in doing so. No changes whatsoever have been made or had been made in the closing remarks of the German translator, nor in Part 2. The author's revision therefore is confined entirely to the letter of the Esseer, in which he tells his brethren at Alexandria the true story of the crucifixion and gives them the facts and incidents connected therewith as he witnessed them. The following additional facts concerning the German translation may be of interest to the reader in this connection. It was published in the author's country in 1873. For reasons which the intelligent reader will doubtless understand as he proceeds, the book was withdrawn from publication at once upon its appearance. So this book was withdrawn once it was published and put out there, right? The plates were destroyed, and it was supposed that all the published copies of the book were likewise disposed of. They both thought it was a heresy, so they destroyed every trace of it, or tried to. Fortunately, however, one copy found its way into the possession of a prominent Mason, it'd probably be a Freemason, etc., in the state of Massachusetts, USA. There it remained securely until accidentally discovered by his daughter sometime during the early summer of the present year, 1907. This lady, knowing his interest, the author's interest in things Masonic, kindly sent him the copy for examination. The author at once recognized its remarkable nature and supreme value and importance. Immediately was started an inquiry through a number of the most prominent book houses and publishing concerns to ascertain if other copies of the little book could be found. At the same time, inquiry was made to ascertain if the official copies of the book were still on file in the Congressional Library. To the author's surprise, not another copy of the book could be found after some 4 months of diligent search. The most remarkable phase of the matter seems to be that the official copies which were deposited with the Librarian of Congress, or Library of Congress, librarian, in compliance with the law of copyrights, have also disappeared. At any rate, in reply to inquiry, the report comes back that no such book is to be found in the Congressional Library. If this be true, it would then appear that the copy from which the following revision was made is, without doubt, the only copy in existence. To be sure, the Latin MS, or manuscript, from which the translation into English was made, is still in existence and is in the hands of the Masonic fraternity in Germany, where, no doubt, it will remain securely guarded from anti-Masonic vandalism. The vital nature of the document cannot fail to impress itself upon the intelligent reader and study of religious history, and it is sincerely to be hoped that it will not suffer another eclipse. TK, author of the great work, Chicago, November 1907. I tried to find information on this particular person, and we couldn't find it. Preface. A member of the Essene mercantile company discovered in Alexandria an ancient house formerly occupied by Grecian friars, in whose library, to oblivion abandoned, was found an old parchment. A French literate, accidentally present, at once commenced deciphering it, but a missionary in the ardour of fanatical orthodoxy tried by all means to destroy the antique document. But the efforts of the Jesuit missionary do not seem to have been successful, as a copy of the Latin original was written, which copy through the Freemasons found its way into Germany. It has been proved from the archaeological discoveries made on the spot that the house where the parchment was found was owned and occupied by the order of Essene. Further, that the document found was the only remains of literature from the once well-filled library of this scientific and religious order or brotherhood. The French literate, who first conceived the importance and historical worth of the manuscript, tried hard to enrich the French Academy with the original, but owing to the intrigues of the Jesuit missions in Egypt, they were bent or hell-bent on destroying a document so detrimental to their doctrine. He was not successful, although it was preserved principally through the interference of influential Abyssinian merchants and Pythagorean societies, from whom the copies above spoken of came into possession of the modern institution of Freemasons, and a society in Germany now possesses, without doubt, the only copy in existence. As regards the discovered antique document, it consisted of a letter which the so-called Therapeut, the elder, the highest esteemed member of the Brotherhood, had written to his brethren in Alexandria in the name of the Brotherhood in Jerusalem. This letter was written by him only a few years after the death of Jesus, giving a full description of the life, doctrine and death of Jesus, who the letter proves to have belonged to and been a member of the Brotherhood. Rumours of his miracles and finally of his martyrdom had also reached Alexandria, and as the brethren there had a conviction that he was their brother, preached their doctrines, used their sign of recognition, and lived in accordance with their rules, they manifested a desire to be informed on the subject as to the real truth of the matter. To obtain this information, their leader or terapeut had written a letter to his colleagues in Jerusalem, who in reply wrote the letter, from which we obtain a clear and truthful account of this important and interesting subject. It is a fact which never has been doubted by those familiar with ancient history, that the Esseers always spoke and wrote the strictest truth, and this, added to their moral and scientific lives, puts an end to any doubt as to the correctness and genuineness of the information given in the ancient discovered letter. Although not at first organised among the Jews, this order existed already in the days of the Maccabees, and with them it assumed more of a national outward form, at the same time maintaining most of the ancient Pythagorean doctrines. Most of the members were agriculturists and gardeners, and assembled together to promote virtue and wisdom among themselves. Furthermore, they devoted themselves, especially in the higher degrees, to the art of healing, induced thereto through their studies of nature and art, and were well acquainted with the effects, and most of them known plants and minerals, for recruiting the human system. This knowledge they made useful by healing and comforting the sick. They were true communists, not communists. Communists, they were part of this community, right? Very communal, and all put their gains into the common treasury, whatever they had, right? Whatever they profited. Before sunrise, they never spoke to each other of earthly matters, but met in prayer at break of day. Having taken their morning meal and put on a peculiar kind of working clothes, they proceeded to their place of work. At noon they again came together, and having washed their hands and feet and dressed themselves in clean white robes, they ate their dinner together. According to their moral standing and ability, they were divided into 4 classes or degrees. In the first degree were especially adopted children, the Essenes hardly ever married, but in case an adult wished to be admitted into the order, it was necessary to go through a very severe moral trial for the term of 3 years. It was strictly prohibited for a member of high degree to divulge any of the secrets of his degree to any of lower rank. The punishment for such a trespass was expulsion, getting kicked out, expelled from the Brotherhood. Nothing but a strictly moral life, wisdom, godliness, and excellency in science entitled to the higher degrees. In their domestic life they exercised hospitality and benevolence, kept the rules of the order strictly, and never took any interest or part in politics or revolutions. Thus they showed a thoroughly peaceable disposition. Their greeting and sign of recognition was, "Peace be with you." At their meals they broke the bread and passed the cup and worshipped Jehovah, but never made any sacrifice in the temple, but performed their ceremonies in their homes. They knew no higher virtue than to suffer and die for their belief. Accordingly, death did not terrify them, as they believed the spirit, a prisoner in the body, to be released through death, then to return to the celestial glory. Deceit and profanity were considered grave sins, as well as quarrelling and vengeance, and looked upon with abhorrence. This order, of which the present Freemasonry is the modern issue, it's probably the modern version of it, was at the time of Jesus widely diffused through Palestine and Egypt, and had their colonies scattered all over the country. So there's apparently there's two types of Freemasonry. There's like the one with all the symbols and signs and the rituals, etc., but they're very God orientated, very Christian, moral, principle, ethics, standards orientated, right? Like these people mentioned. And then you have the ones that twisted it, that perverted it later on, okay, and they're all satanic, all that sort of stuff. Because we've looked at what we thought was a King James Bible, we've done a video on it as well, and it actually turned out to be a Freemasonic KJV style Bible, and it explained it all in there. Just there's one problem, they seem to have this problem in the US with black members, or was it the UK? One of those two, when they travelled, maybe they went to the UK and they seem to have a problem with the black brothers of that, right? So they probably started their own black Freemasonic faction. Okay, yeah, it looks like the big King James version that we've got. It's really, really big, and thick, and heavy. But it's got the symbols on it and all that sort of stuff. It's actually quite a good read. Okay, we're going to go back to this book. This order, of which the present Freemasonry is a modern issue, or modern version, was at the time of Jesus widely diffused through Palestine and Egypt, and it had their colonies scattered all over the country. They always kept up a congenial fraternal feeling in their meetings, and gave each other information about the affairs of the Brotherhood. They counted among the members men of all professions and stations in society, and although compromising a great many learned men and rich persons, who sometimes found it in their interest to keep the secret, they never excluded the poor, nor persons in moderate circumstances. Thus we have all the reasons to credit this letter, dictated by the love of truth, and written by a man who had been an eyewitness to most of the important transactions in the life and death of Jesus, who as a member of their order was embraced by them with all the fraternal devotion of the order. The translator. So he's saying that all is truth, it's not fake, it's not propaganda, it's not a lie, etc., etc. Description of Jesus. In his contemporary Publius Lentulus, who was the predecessor of Pontius Pilate as governor of Judea. That would be interesting to find information on that guy. He came before Pontius Pilate as governor of Judea. Never seen that in the history books, so that would be quite interesting. A man of noble stature and of very beautiful countenance, in which such majesty resides that those who look on him are forced to admire him. His hair is of the colour of a fully ripe chestnut, and from his ear down his shoulders it is of the colour of the earth, but shining. It is parted in the middle of his forehead, after the manner of the Nazarenes. His forehead is smooth and very serene, his face free from wrinkle and spot, and with a slight colour. It might be a little brown, right? Because the sun's hitting his face all the time. But it's not saying he's black. Yeah. Maybe he's olive skin. Yeah. But we'd go with the. He's got a bit of a tan, because the sun's beating down on him every day. Most of his life, all of his life. The nostrils and lips cannot reasonably be found fault with. The beard is thick and like the hair, not very long and divided in the middle. Okay. There is a look of terror in his grave eyes. The eyes are like the rays of the sun. It is impossible to look him steadily in the face on account of their brilliancy. Many, like John the Revelator, saw visions, saw Christ, etc., and said, this is the same thing. In Revelations 15 or something like that, 1:15 or something. His eyes were like blazing like fire, all this sort of stuff. The eyes are like the rays of the sun, and it is impossible to look him steadily in the face on account of their brilliancy. When he reproves, he terrifies. When he admonishes, he weeps. He makes himself loved and is gravely cheerful. It is said that he was never seen to laugh, but he was seen to weep. His hands and arms are very beautiful. In conversation he is charming, but he seldom engages in it, and when he does converse he is very modest of countenance. In presence he is the most beautiful man that could be seen or imagined, just like his mother, who is the most beautiful young person that was ever beheld in these parts. In learning he is an object of wonder to the entire city of Jerusalem. He never studied at all, and yet he knows all sciences. That's kind of strange, but yeah, okay. Being the Son of God, being a creator, etc. Understandable. He wears sandals. Well, I don't think he'll be wearing Nikes or Adidas. He wears sandals and goes bareheaded. Many laugh at seeing him, but in his presence and when speaking to him they fear and tremble. It is said that such a man was never seen or heard in these parts. In truth, as the Hebrews tell this particular person, the one who wrote all this down 7 years after Christ's death, the Hebrews tell him they never were heard such advice or such sublime doctrine as this Christ teaches, and many of the Jews hold him for divine, and they believe in him, while many others accuse him to this particular person as being contrary to thy majesty, to God probably. It is acknowledged that he has never done harm to anyone but good. All that know him and have had dealings with him say that they have received from him benefits and health. The foregoing description is condensed from a letter written by Publius Lentulus, then governor of Judea, to Tiberius Caesar, emperor of the Romans. So you had to check out the histories and find information on that guy, Publius. Death warrant of Jesus. Sentence rendered by Pontius Pilate, acting governor of Lower Galilee, stating that Jesus of Nazareth shall suffer death on the cross. In the year 17 of the Emperor Tiberius Caesar, in the 27th day of March, in the city of the Holy Jerusalem, Annas and Caiaphas, being priests, sacrificators of the people of God, Pontius Pilate, governor of Lower Galilee, sitting in the presidential chair of the praetory, condemns Jesus of Nazareth to die on the cross between two thieves, the great and notorious evidence of the people, saying: 1. Jesus is a seducer. 2. He is seditious. 3. He is the enemy of the law. Roman law probably. Jewish law. 4. He calls himself falsely the Son of God. 5. He calls himself falsely King of Israel. 6. He entered into the temple, followed by a multitude bearing palm branches in their hands. Orders the first centurion, Cornelius, to lead him to the place of execution. Forbids any person whomsoever, either poor or rich, to oppose the death of Jesus Christ. This is Pontius Pilate. The witnesses who signed the condemnation of Jesus are: 1. Daniel Rabbani, a Pharisee; 2. Joannes Rabbani; 3. Raphael Rabbani, so they're all related, they're all brothers probably; and 4. Carpate, a citizen. Jesus shall go out of the city of Jerusalem by the gate of Stewardess. The foregoing is engraved on a copper plate, on the reverse side of which is written: a similar plate is sent to each tribe. It was found in an antique marble vase while excavating in the ancient city of Aquila in the kingdom of Naples in the year 1810, and was discovered by the commissioners of the arts of the French army. At the expedition of Naples, it was enclosed in a box of ebony and preserved in the sacristy of the Chartum Sentosa. The French translation was made by the commissioners of arts. The original is in the Hebrew language. Well, it wasn't a Hebrew. Aramaic Hebrew. Hebrew was the people who, in Ur of Chaldea, Abraham, etc. Apakshad was the father of Eber, deemed the father of the Hebrews, and then Awer, where these people made this great journey, because Abraham was told by God, I'm going to give you this land, the land of the Canaanites, the land of milk and honey, etc., which is basically present day Israel. That's where it's situated. All this sort of stuff. So these people made a journey. The Awer, A-W-E-R, or the Hebrews, that was the name given them, right? They were all Chaldeans, descendants, forefathers or cousins or whatever of Abraham that came along, and then they all went on a journey, made a passage, and went to Canaan and resided there, and probably eventually picked up their language, which is Canaanite, Ugaritic, while still using the Chaldean, etc., etc. Part 1. Letter from an Esseer, or brother of the Essenes, who was an Essene, in Jerusalem, to his brethren in Alexandria. Peace be with you, dear brethren. You have heard of the things that have happened in Jerusalem and Palestine. In general, you were right to believe Jesus to be our brother and a member of our order, of whom his friends among the Romans and Jewish people relate, that he taught and wrought great wonders, performed great wonders, and finally suffered the death of martyrs in Jerusalem. He was born in Nazareth, in the ancient, the original ancient, very old Aramaic New Testament, translated by native-born Aramaic-speaking translator filmmaker, etc. Victor N. Alexander from Bethnarain or Mesopotamia, Syria, actually translated in the footnotes. I can't remember what the word was in the Aramaic, but it translates as victorious. Okay. So he was, because he would be victorious over the devil, over sin, etc. And all he did. Okay. So you're right to believe Jesus to be our brother and a member of our order. Actually, the name's on a game that we played. It's a war game. Yeah, I can't remember what the name of it is. Hang on, there was a woman next to us. She had the same name. Oh my gosh. Let's have a look. Over here. Let's have a look. It's in Matthew. I'm pretty sure. What is it? What verse is it? Matthew 1 or 2? Let's have a look here. Okay, here we go. In the Aramaic New Testament, translated by Victor N. Alexander, it has a footnote. Okay, here's the verse. Matthew 2:23. And he, Jesus, came and lived in a town called Nazareth, so that what the prophets had said, it'll be probably in the book of Isaiah or the Old Testament somewhere, came to be fulfilled, that victorious he shall be called. Footnotes 2:23 in Aramaic. That's the ancient, that's the original ancient, very old Aramaic, not a modified or modern version that most might use today. In Aramaic, pronounced Nusrat, meaning the victorious, or of the town of Nazareth. It's N-U-S-S-R-A-T, Nusrat. Yeah, we played a war game one time, and it was like a Russian town or something, or city, called Nusrat. But yeah, this is Nazareth in the original ancient Galilean Aramaic. Okay, so he's born in Nazareth by the entrance to the beautiful valley into which the river Kishon rushes down the steep declivities of the Mount Tabor. He was put under the protection of the order by a member of our Brotherhood, by whom his father and mother found a refuge on their flight to Egypt. There are, as you know, many of our brethren living on the borders of Egypt. In fine, Jesus was admitted into the order, so he may have been in Essene at the same time with John in their years of early manhood. He lived then in Galilee and had just returned from a visit to Jerusalem, where he was watched by our Brotherhood. Jutha was the place of his initiation, close by the grand castle of Masada, maybe that's Masada, Herod's Masada, that big castle he made, where the mountains raised their lofty peaks above the surrounding country of Israel and Jerusalem. My dear brethren, you may all have been convinced that he has been a member of our order, as well by the doctrines he has taught the people and his signs of recognition, especially the baptism and the breaking of the bread and passing of the wine, as well as by his being baptized by one of our brethren, John, who that reckon was also in the scene, in Jordan, near the shore of the Dead Sea, in a westerly direction. For baptism, as you know, has been since time immemorial a sacred institution in our order, so they had to face westward, a westerly direction. That's interesting. You wonder that the belief in the supernatural and miracles should gain foothold in our midst, when you know that we all have to bear the responsibility for the actions of one of our members. Therefore, you ought to know that the rumour is like a wind. When it commences, it drives the pure air far ahead, but in its progress it receives all vapours and mist from the earth, and when it has travelled some distance, it creates darkness instead of the clear pure air of which it was at first composed, and at last consists solely of the particles it has received during its progress. It is even so with the rumours concerning Jesus and his fate. Furthermore, remember that the inspired men who have written and spoken of him were often carried away by the spirit of enthusiasm, and in their devotion and simplicity they believed all the things told them about him by the multitudes who were even more simple-minded and superstitious than they. Bear ever in mind also that in accordance with our rules, the secrets of our holy brotherhood at all times remained unknown to these writers, and that only our higher members had any knowledge about the secret assistance and protection Jesus received from us. So in that sense, that would be gnosis, possibly. And finally, do not forget that our rigid laws prohibited us from interfering or taking any active part in the councils or plans of the rulers of the land, the Pharisees, the Sadducees, etc., or even the Romans. Therefore, we have acted quietly and secretly and have suffered the law to run its course. At the same time, we secretly aided and assisted our friend in ways which did not infringe the law and our rules. Know then that Jesus was and is our brother, and himself vowed, when he at Jutha was made an initiate of our order, that our brotherhood thenceforth should be to him as father and mother, and truly we have proved us so in the spirit and the letter of our law. And the author states, I write this to you, my brethren, in the truth and knowledge of our brotherhood, that you may know and understand the truth concerning what has come to pass. I tell you only of the things I know, and I have seen it all with mine own eyes, and have taken a deep interest and an active part in all these transactions. Now, at the time that I write this to you, the Jews have 7 times eaten of the lamb of the Passover, since our brother was crucified, a brother whom we all loved, and in whom God was glorified. Nevertheless, I have forgotten none of the things I have lived to see come to pass. Indeed, as true as are the words that pass from my lips, of his lips, and the thoughts that he wrote, as verily he does believe from the depths of his soul that Jesus was chosen of God and begotten by the eternal Spirit. He called himself the Son of God, and he proved himself to us, those around him, by teaching in the name of God. He also lived a holy life and was deeply learned in the secrets of all the kingdoms of nature. In all these things we of the secret brotherhood acknowledge God, and the man among us who can say, Behold, I am of God. Look, take notice, I am of God. Verily he is so, for he that is not cannot say it, not having the word in his heart or his mind, because that language, Eastern language, heart. Heart's just a muscle, it doesn't think for itself, so it actually means mind in the Hebrew, and not having learned it from the Spirit. I will now tell you of the parentage of this man who loved all men, and for whom we feel the highest esteem, that you may have full knowledge of him. He was from his infancy brought up for our brotherhood. Indeed, he was predicted by an Esseer, whom the woman thought to be an angel. So, some brotherhood practicing Essene, right? Whom the woman thought to be an angel. This woman was given to many imaginings, delving into the supernatural and into the mysteries of life, and she found deep interest and pleasure in the things she could not explain. Our brother, the Esseer, has acknowledged to us his part in these things, and has persuaded the brotherhood secretly to search for and protect the child. So, were the is he talking about the wise men, the 3 wise men? Were they part of this brotherhood, or was he talking about somebody else that came later, or as he grew, right? And Joseph, who was a man of great experience in life and deep devotion to the immortal truth, through a messenger of our order. So these angels, when you translate it from the Hebrew into the English, it actually could be a holy angel, or it could be a messenger with a message. Okay. Through a messenger of our order was influenced not to leave the woman or to disturb her faith in the sacredness of her experience, and to be a father to the child unto our brotherhood, should admit him as a novice. Thus, during the flight to Egypt, Joseph was secretly protected and guided by our order, and conducted as a guest to the congregated brotherhood by the Mount Cassius, at the slope of the mount on which the Romans had built a temple dedicated to Jupiter, pagan god, right? The planet. The Esseers who lived there were commissioned to introduce Joseph, his wife, and the child into the congregation, that they might see our way of worshipping and praising God, the Creator of all, and learn the ceremony of eating the consecrated bread and drinking the holy wine. At their request, they informed the brotherhood in Jerusalem how it all had been done. Joseph was placed among the half circle of men on the right hand, and Mary his wife among the women on the left hand. There they, with our brethren, ate The brethren ate the bread and drank the wine, and altogether sang the holy hymns. Further, Joseph here vowed before the elder of the Brotherhood, that he renounced forever any claim on the child who was thenceforth to belong to the order. He was then made acquainted with the salutation and sign of the Holy Brotherhood, which would enable him during his travels to make himself known to these. They also directed him which route to take to arrive in safety. This route was through a part of the country where there lived many enlightened and learned Jews who were well versed in the scriptures and devoted to study. Among these, the order had many members. These were ordered to protect Joseph and be hospitable to him. There's robbers on the way, vagabonds, even before he arrived among them. This was in the beautiful country of Heliopolis, with its splendid forest, and near unto the temple of Jehovah, erected by Onias. When the peril in Galilee was over, and the Roman wars was pillaging in Judea, making that country unsafe, Joseph went to Nazareth, which is situated nearby the steep mount of Tabor. But soon Archelaus brought new terror over Galilee. That's one of Herod's sons. And Joseph was persuaded by the brethren to go to Jerusalem on his way passing Luhim, and there seek protection by their brotherhood. This was duly accomplished, and at Passover they arrived at Nisan. It's a name in the month, the Hebrew Jewish month, right? Here, this particular writer of this letter himself spoke with him. He was then in the lower degree of the order, and in obedience to the command of the elder carried a message to Joseph. He found him to be a man of candour and wide experience. He spoke with great judgment and wisdom. Indeed, he exhorted Mary to describe distinctly the differences between reality and dreamy imagination, things as different as the day is from the night, and instructed her how to quiet her mind through prayer and devotion. We're seeking that sort of thing. Her mind was filled with fiery imaginations or imaginings that often lifted her thoughts up to heavenly things and made her indifferent to the things of the earth. In consequence, she strongly influenced the mind of her son to the study and contemplation of immortal truths. Joseph commended her for her good influence over the child. He also instructed Jesus in knowledge and wisdom, and protected his pure mind against the power of overstrained imagination. And when the child Jesus spoke with the scribes concerning holy things, his doctrines gave deep offence to the Pharisees in Jerusalem, in that they considered them dangerous and incredible. What about the part where he spoke to these Jews, these Pharisees or whatever, and they were, these elders, and they were quite impressed that he knew all of this better than anyone else, right? What happened there? And when the child Jesus spoke with the scribes concerning holy things, his doctrines gave deep offence to the Pharisees in Jerusalem, in that they considered them dangerous and incredible. Well, there's one twist on it, because the other one said they were amazed that this child knew so much. How could a child know so much? Who was his teacher? Inasmuch as the Pharisees held rigidly to the traditions and details of the law of Moses, they were deeply aggrieved against everyone who did not believe with them, and who did not keep in outward form to the ceremonials of their temple service. They gave alms in the sight of the multitudes, but they always give charitable. Hey, look, we're doing charitable things. Hey, pay attention. They gave alms in the sight of the multitudes. They taught of the kingdom of the dead, of the influence of good angels and evil spirits, and of the future grand eternal destiny of the Jewish people. Although they had many friends among the common people, and exercised great power and influence with them, nevertheless the Spirit of God dwelt neither in their houses nor in their tongues. But Joseph had come to be of the Brotherhood's doctrines, Essene doctrines, and without figures or mysteries he fixed them in the mind of the growing child. Indeed, the child thus early was touched by the miseries of the people, and they were enraptured to hear him teach the word of God. The scribes knew him to be from Galilee, and they despised him as they despised the whole people of Galilee. He was Galilean, right? But some of the brethren went to the temple, and without betraying themselves through the holy salutation, kept him in their midst, that they might thus protect him. When the divine child had spoken publicly in the temple, then were the brothers apprehensive of the dangers that threatened him. So that's why he quickly disappeared in the crowd, etc., etc. For they knew that the Pharisees and the rabbis were in private council, fully determined to banish him from Galilee because of his doctrines. They therefore lured him to the synagogue of Sophorim by manifesting to him an assumed interest in the law, for they perceived that in all his ardour and enthusiasm he was influenced by nothing else. Thus it came to pass that he was lost from his father and mother in the large city, which then contained many people from the whole country, because of the Passover. Their friends, this guy's friends, the Esseers, were informed of these things, and they saw that it was not safe nor wise for the child to remain longer among the Pharisees, as much more as a rabbi who had become a true friend and teacher to the child no more could be present to moderate his zeal and ardour, contending as he was with the immoral hypocrites, as the rabbi had gone on a journey to Jericho. Therefore, these people informed Joseph, the Brotherhood informed Joseph and his wife, whom they found in double grief, inasmuch as they at the time also had been informed that the husband of Elizabeth, Mary's friend, had died. Is that Lazarus? Thus for 3 days Mary had been searching for her son in deep sorrow, and at the same time she felt a strong desire to go and see her friend. And at last, because I think Elizabeth was that the Elizabeth that no, she gave birth to John. Not really sure. That same Elizabeth. Okay. At last, on the 4th day, she found her son at Sophorim, according to the information given her by our brethren of the Brotherhood. And Nabin, the rabbi who had taken such deep interest in the child, was a secret member of the order and had received instructions to protect him. Thus it came to pass that Mary, her husband, and his son returned to Jutha. There she found her friend Elizabeth in the great grief with her son, whose name was John. That John the Baptist, Jesus' cousin. Here the two youths were much together, and together they talked much about the sacred and the divine. Often, it's Old English, oft they wandered into the wilderness, the wildest parts of the mountains regions. They grew to be devoted friends, and their attachment ripened into intimate acquaintance with each other in their search for truth. And that doesn't mean that they were gaybos or anything like that. Okay, it's not saying that. Okay, they were just really, really close. Okay, they're just bonding, and they were familiar. They had familiar interest in the search for truth. John, who was the son of Zacharias, had already received the doctrines of the Nazarenes as regards reservedness, and he knew perfectly the scriptures and traditions, but comprehended now not the beautiful and the exalted in this world, nor the laws of nature as well as Jesus. He felt great dislike for the customs of the heathens, and despised and hated all tyrants. And the time had come when Jesus should be admitted into the first degree of the order. And in the valley of the order had a Brotherhood situated near the mountain where the castle of Masada stands, and the elders of the Brotherhood met them there and listened to the conversation. He taught them that wisdom and virtue are strengthened by fraternity, whereupon Jesus, in a transport of great joy, asked that he might be prepared at once for the admittance into the holy order. The example set by Jesus was followed by John, and the elder offered up a prayer which made Jesus a devotee of God. According to the rules of the order, the elder then said, "You shall be my brethren as soon as you, by the next new moon, shall see the glare of the fire on the mountain where the temple is built, and where you will then appear. He that is initiated into our order must at the same time dedicate his life to the service of others. Tell your father Joseph that the time has now come for him to fulfill the vow he made at Mount Cassius." The Esseer then departed, but when the child had returned to his home, Joseph was already remembered of his vow and of his duties to the brethren. Joseph then for the first time made known to Jesus that he was not his father. Together they kept secret the admission of Jesus into the Brotherhood for fear of the Gaulonites, probably the Gauls, the Romans attacked, fought, etc. Not really sure. And at the appointed time they saw, in the evening the fire signal ascend from the mountain, whereupon they immediately set forth to journey thither. Get up there, right? When they were arrived at the temple, they were met by the white-robed messengers sent by the Brotherhood. According to the rules of the order, Jesus was initiated into the Holy Order after following manner. Both were instructed and shown the way to enter into the assemblage, where the brethren were seated in 4 separated groups, according to their 4 degrees. Over the scene, the crescent shed its lurid glare. The 2 were placed before their brethren. There they made their vow, the brethren in the white robes placing their right hand upon their breast, with the left hanging down at the side. This was done as a token that none but the pure in heart shall see that which is sacred and holy. And the 2 vowed indifference to the treasures of earth, to worldly power and name, and by the brotherly kiss they vowed obedience and secrecy. And this is not gay or anything like that, as Shaka Amos said of the Hebrew Israelites. They kiss each other on the lips, because Captain Tazaria messed up, right? Because he just lost a friend or something like that. And then Shaka Amos goes, "Oh, you Hebrew Israelites kiss each other on the lips," and he's rolling around the couch laughing for about half an hour, something like that. They kiss each other, you homos and all this sort of stuff. It's nothing to do with it. It's like a sacred kiss, right? It's like Italians, they kiss each other on the cheek. Yeah, they say buongiorno or whatever, and they kiss. You see in those old movies, mafia movies, with that sort of stuff. Yeah, it's like that. Yeah? And in obedience to the custom, when these 2 had made their vow, they were conducted into the lonely cabin, where for 3 days and nights they were subject to self-examination and trial. In the evening of the 3rd day, they were again brought before the assembled brethren to answer the questions put to them, and then to pray. Having received a brotherly kiss, it's a greeting kiss, right? They were clothed in white robes. It's not a kiss on the lips and tongue and all that sort of stuff. Emblems of sacred purity in the trowel, emblematic of the labours of the Brotherhood, was put into their hands. Having sung the sacred hymns and partaken of the feast of love by themselves. Okay, it's love for all their brothers, right? It's not feast of love like love making or anything like that. There's no Spartan boy loving here or anything like that. According to the custom of our order, none of the brethren participating, they were dismissed. After this, they were instructed concerning the trials and the disciplines through which they must pass, living in the loneliness of solitude, separate from the world of mankind, for the period of 1 year, at a point near the elder of the order from whom they should receive instructions fitting them for advancement in the higher degrees of the order. Both grew rapidly in divine knowledge. Jesus was frank and hearty of disposition, but John shrouded himself in stern seriousness and solitude. It was hardcore. When the years of trial and self-examination was past, they were again under the new moon, admitted into the order, this time as royal members, and initiated into the higher science. When they had given a full account of their conduct during the preceding year, and acted in obedience to all the rules of the order, and performed the ceremonies of singing and prayer and partaking of the feast of love, they were conducted to the secret chamber of worship, and then they were instructed and admonished to search the scriptures. Inasmuch as the rules of the order permit the admitted member either to remain with the Brotherhood in secret labour and fellowship, or go out into the world to teach or heal, according to his election, so Jesus chose to go forth teaching, while John chose to become a cherubim or elder. Jesus felt himself called by the Spirit of God, and longed to preach the doctrines of the order to the people. Thus it came to pass that John returned to Judea to live in solitude in the wilderness. And Jesus returned to Nazareth. Here he proved gloriously his virtue and fulfilled his vow to the order. His friend Lazarus had a sister Mary who loved Jesus, and he in his heart returned her love. But according to the rules of the order, an Esseer is not allowed to take unto himself a wife after his own desire, lest the sacred work be thereby retarded. And so it was that Jesus overcame his love for this woman by his dutiful devotion to unselfish service of the Brotherhood. But the struggle was hard, and at the hour of their parting, both Jesus and Mary wept bitterly. guy who wrote this letter states he informed all of these things, that they should indeed know that Jesus was their brother and belonged to the Holy Order. Thus all doubts and uncertainties on this matter must be ended. Jesus, our brother, or their brother, willingly suffered death that he might thereby glorify the doctrines of the order. And the greatest reward of their virtue is that they may, in like manner, be allowed to sacrifice themselves for it. Go to martyrdom, right? And it was heard the accounts which the Jews and his disciples had given concerning him, that they have seen him in the mountains and on the road after they believed him to be dead and resurrected. Right? The divine providence has given us a minute knowledge of these events that is hidden from the people, and it is our duty to inform you of the facts and reply to your questions relative thereto. And there's plenty more here. You know, there are many pious and excellent men who have recorded and remembered the life and death of Jesus, but have them only from rumours, augmented and corrupted by superstition, and from reverence and piety they believe what they hear of a beloved Master. It was even so with those chosen from among the people who were called disciples of Jesus. Most of them have heard the story of his life and death only through tradition, as it has been told from man to man, although there were others who were present, but these have given no information concerning these important events. In secrecy, this person would then inform all of what he and the Brotherhood in Jerusalem have seen and witnessed, and they remind a person in the Brotherhood that an Esseer or an Essene never permits anything to pass his lips save the strictest truth, so he's not to be found lying. Every man who has the gift of speech should magnify God and give manifestation of him, even as God has given unto him a tongue in his mouth. We might indeed have saved, he says, they might have indeed saved their beloved brother from the vengeance of his enemies, if everything had not come to pass so quickly, and if their laws had not prohibited them from interfering in public matters. Nevertheless, they would have saved him in secret, as he fulfilled his divine mission in the sight of all of the universe and the Brotherhood. Right? Indeed, that a man die for his faith does not increase the glory of God, but that he, full of devotion and divine confidence, suffered himself to be subjected to martyrdom for his faith, and this resolution, firmly fixed in mind, constitutes the fulfilment of a work in the sight of the world. Therefore, pay good heed or attention to what this guy now tells you. Just took it to all the brethren, right? Or whoever's reading this letter, that you may judge for yourselves of the rumours that have reached you hence and from Rome. Here is the large vacant place in the document, caused by the destroying influence of time, the deciphering of which is not possible from the still existing remains. The procession in which was the doomed Jesus and two thieves wound its way out of the entrance into the valley, to the valley that leads from Jerusalem to Golgotha, the place of execution. The women cried loudly when they beheld Jesus almost sinking down under the weight of the cross, and his wounds from the scourging he had undergone bleeding profusely. Having arrived at the barren mountain ridge Gileon, where nothing grows, and which lay on the north side, through which the lonely valley of death winds its way, they halted, and Jesus fell to the ground, his tortured body losing all its strength. Meanwhile, the Roman soldiers were selecting places for erecting the crosses. This done, they desired to prove their sympathy with the sufferers by giving to them a drink that made them unconscious, according to the custom before crucifixion. This drink was made from sour wine mixed with wormwood, and was called Tosca. Remember wormwood in, I guess, the Book of Revelations, where something hits these waters, and it's called wormwood, and it turns everything sour. It's undrinkable. Okay, so it's called Tosca. But Jesus did not wish to die for his faith and the truth as a drunkard, wherefore he refused to drink of it, having knowledge from the order of the qualities of the mixture, which he knew by testing it. And the crosses being erected, the time was now come when the punishment was to be inflicted on Jesus. The first ceremony was to tear his clothes from his body, but in order that this might be done, it was necessary to divest him of the soldier's mantle that he wore after the scourging, or that red cloak, right? Even the Spartans had red, right? It was signifying blood or something like that, etc., etc., the power of blood, whatever. So he had to get rid of that after getting the whipping, and he put on him his own clothes, which later was then torn off his body as the law requires. Crucifixion, probably, right? Is part of the process. At the request of the servants of Sanhedrin, the cross designed for Jesus was placed in the middle between those for the two thieves, thereby denoting that his was the greatest crime. They had even distinguished his cross from the others, for although they commonly were constructed in such a manner that the perpendicular beam did not reach above the cross beam, his was of different form, the perpendicular beam reaching far above the cross beam. They then laid hold of Jesus and lifted him up, placed him on the short stake, which is always put in front of each cross, that the body of the criminal may rest there while being tied. They tied the arms, as usual, with strong cords, so tightly that all the blood went back to the heart, and breathing was thereby made difficult. In the same manner they tied his feet and wound halfway up his legs strong cords, which also drove the circulating blood back to the heart. After this they drove through his hands thick iron nails. Well, it's actually been said by scientists and all that sort of stuff that it was actually through the wrists, because through the hands, the sheer weight, the gravity pushing down on him would just tear him off. Wouldn't be able to lift himself up, or that sort of stuff. But none through his feet, for this was after this they drove through his hands thick iron nails, but none through his feet, for this was not customary. And this so-called letter writer notes that this particularly to his brothers, inasmuch as it had been rumoured that he was nailed through both his hands and his feet. Thus the just hung exposed to untold sufferings in the heat of the sun, which on that day was extreme and fatiguing, while the soldiers took possession of his clothes according to the custom. You get this understandable, like you don't put the nail in your feet, because how is he going to push himself up if he's got both feet nailed together, right? He's going to have to lift himself up with his arms, his hands, like, you know. He uses his arms to pull himself up, to breathe, to breathe, right? So yeah, put his feet on like a little platform. He's all nailed up, right? But at times he can push himself up with his feet to be able to breathe, etc. The just hung exposed to untold sufferings in the heat of the sun, which on that day was extreme and fatiguing, while the soldiers took possession of his clothes according to the custom. The cloak they cut into 4 parts, but the tunic was woven and could not be torn asunder, wherefore they cast lots for it. Yeah, so you could easily rip the cloak, that Roman cloak, with that cover, and they couldn't rip his clothes because of the threading or something like that. After the noonday, when the sun had turned, there came throngs of people from the city, drawn thither, or drawn forward by curiosity. It's an accident, all that sort of stuff. There's always a lot of people that gather around and say, "Oh, yeah, I saw this, I saw that," but they weren't actually there when things happen, and they get things wrong, etc., etc. There are several priests present, gloating over their sinful vengeance. They got their revenge, they reckoned. They derided him, bowed down as he was with grief and pain, and exhorted the people to mock him. Encouraged the people, inspired them to mock him, right? Jesus suffered quietly, directing his gaze to the sky. He heard not the woman of his tribe from Galilee, who was standing some distance away, wringing their hands and lamenting his, as they thought, untimely death. These sounds of anguish and lamentation were joined by the noise of horsemen advancing to the scene. This was the high priest Caiaphas, with a large escort of servants who came to mock and deride the crucified Son of God. And even one of the crucified thieves joined with them in deriding him, for he had secretly hoped that Jesus would have delivered both himself and them through a miracle. Now the Romans, in derision of the Jews, fixed a tablet or plate on the cross, probably just to pee them off, right? Derision, maybe it's dislike of the Jews, maybe. Over his head were on in 4 different languages. They designated him King of the Jews. This deeply angered the priests, but inasmuch as they feared Pilate, they exhausted their wrath by mocking Jesus. Darkness descended over the earth, and the people returned to Jerusalem. So what would those 4 languages be? The Latin, Aramaic, Hebrew, and maybe Greek. Not too sure. Maybe. Some people have suggested Tamil. It's like, what? Darkness descended over the earth and the people returned to Jerusalem. But Jesus' disciples, his friends and the elders of the Holy Order, of the Brotherhood, remained on Golgotha, the order having nearby a colony for worship and for partaking of their feast of love. And Jesus, recognizing his mother among them, weeping woman from Galilee, standing close by the silent John the evangelist, not John the baptizer, because he was dead, right? Jesus called out loudly. This is probably John the Revelator as well. Jesus called out loudly in the anguish of his pain, citing the 22nd Psalm, praying God thereby to deliver him from his sufferings. There were still a few Pharisees remaining on the mountain who intended mocking him, but because they had expected and hoped that Jesus would descend from the cross, the worldly Saviour of the people, and as this had not come to pass, they felt themselves deceived and were therefore angry. So they thought that he'd get off the cross and he'd wipe out the Romans or something like that and restore Israel back to the Jews. But he didn't get off it, right? He stayed up there. The heat grew steadily more intense, more unendurable, and a fire was forming in the earth and air, such as is essential to the purification of the elements. The Esseer brethren, through their knowledge of nature and its elements, knew that an earthquake was coming, as had formerly occurred in the days of their forefathers. As the night approached, the earth began a terrible shaking, and the Roman centurion became so terrified that he prayed to his heathen gods, Jupiter, etc. He believed that Jesus was beloved by the gods, or favoured by the gods, right? Definitely looked upon. Most of the frightened people hastily departed from the place and returned to Jerusalem, and the centurion, who was a noble man of compassionate nature, permitted John to conduct the mother of Jesus close to the cross. She could move forward to it, right? Comfort him, console him, whatever. Jesus was consumed with thirst. His lips were parched and dry, and the pain was burning in his limbs. A soldier put a sponge dipped in vinegar on a long cane of hyssop, and from this Jesus quenched his thirst. As he recommended his mother to the care of John, it was growing darker, where the full moon should have been shining in the heavens. From the Dead Sea was observed to rise a thick, reddish fog. The mountain ridges round about Jerusalem shook violently, and the head of Jesus sank down upon his breast. When he uttered his last groan of anguish and pain and passed away, a hissing sound was heard in the air, and they of the Jews that still remained were seized by great fear, for they believed that the evil spirits who dwelled between the heavens and earth were proceeding to punish the people. It sounds like hissing snakes, right? It was that strange and unusual sound in the air that precedes an earthquake. Soon the mountain began to shake, the surrounding country and the city commenced to rock, and the thick walls of the temple gave way until the veil in the temple parted and fell from its place. Well, we have read in the original Aramaic, I think it was that the actual doors were ripped open and came off, something like that. Possibly had a veil on the inside of it. Even the rocks burst asunder, and the hewn sepulchres in the rock were destroyed, all the tombs, as were also many of the corpses kept therein. They popped out, right? Jumped up, popped out, whatever. And the Jews regarded all this as extremely supernatural. Supernatural. So the Roman centurion believed now in the divinity and innocence of Christ, and comforted his mother. He said, this man, maybe one of them said, this man truly was the Son of God. Okay, maybe. Although our brethren did not dare to tell the people, as it is a secret, the Brotherhood, I didn't tell anybody, as was secret with them, nevertheless they well knew the cause of this phenomenon of nature and believed in their brother without ascribing to him supernatural powers. Dear brethren, with Brotherhood, you have reproached us in that we did not save our friend. As they come in, why didn't you save him? From the cross by secret means. You know, that secret methods, they say certain things or whatever, you know, and they get him off. Yeah. But this writer says, I only need to remind them that the sacred law of the order prohibits them from proceeding publicly and from interfering in matters of state, so they couldn't do anything. Even though they had those powers, there was this rule, you can't interfere. Moreover, two of the brethren, influential and experienced, did use all the influence of Pilate in the Jewish council in behalf of Jesus, but the efforts were frustrated in that Jesus himself requested that he might be permitted to suffer death for his faith, and thus fulfill the law. For as you know, to die for truth and virtue is the greatest sacrifice a brother can make of that brotherhood. Right? There was a certain Joseph from Arimathea. He was rich, and being a member, supposedly it's his uncle, and he took him to the tin mines when he was younger, England, etc. He was much esteemed by the people. He was a prudent man, and whilst he did not appear to belong to any party, he was secretly a member of the sacred order, the Brotherhood, and lived in accordance with the laws. His friend Nicodemus, who was a Pharisee, was a most learned man and belonged to the highest degree of the order. Okay. He knew the secrets of the therapeutes and was often together with them. Now it so happened that after the earthquake and many of the people had gone away, Joseph and Nicodemus arrived at the cross. They were informed of the death of the crucified in the garden of the brethren, not far from Calvary. Although they loudly lamented his fate, it nevertheless appeared strange to them that Jesus, having hung less than 7 hours, should already be dead. They could not believe it, and hastily went up to the place. There they found John alone, he having determined to see what became of the beloved body. Joseph and Nicodemus examined the body of Jesus, and Nicodemus, greatly moved, drew Joseph aside and said to him, "As sure as is my knowledge of life and nature, so sure is it possible to save him." But Joseph did not understand him, and he admonished us that with the brothers, those two, that they should not tell John of what they had heard. Indeed, it was a secret which was to save the brother from death, or Jesus from death. Nicodemus shouted, "We must immediately have the body with its bones unbroken, because he may still be saved." Then, realizing his want of caution, he continued in a whisper, "Saved from being infamously buried." He persuaded Joseph to disregard his own interest, that he might save their friend by going immediately to Pilatus and prevailing upon him to permit them to take Jesus' body down from the cross that very night and put it in a sepulchre hewn in the rock close by, and which belonged to Joseph. And this letter writer understood that what he meant remained with John to watch the cross and prevent the soldiers from breaking his bones of Jesus. No corpse is allowed to remain on the cross overnight, and the next day being Sunday, they would then take them down and bury him early. Yeah, that's breaking up the bones to see if they're still alive. The Jewish council had already demanded of Pilate an order to the soldiers to break the bones of the crucified that they might be buried. Soon after Joseph and Nicodemus had departed, each one on a sacred mission, a messenger arrived bringing the order to the centurion to take down the corpses and bury them. The writer himself was greatly agitated by this information, for he knew if he were not handled with great care he would not be saved, and still less if his bones were to be broken. Even John was dismayed, though not from fear of the plans being frustrated, for of these he did not know, but he was deeply grieved at the thought of seeing the body of his friend mutilated, for John believed that Jesus was dead. As the messenger arrived, this letter writer hastened to him, thinking and hoping that Joseph already might have seen Pilate, a thing of which there in reality was no possibility. "Does Pilate send you?" he asked of him, and he answered, "He came not from Pilate, but from a secretary who acts for the governor in such unimportant matters." The centurion, observing this writer's anxiety, looked at him, and in the manner of a friend, he said to him, "You have seen that this man that is crucified is an uncommon man." He's the ordinary man, right? But he's not like any other man. "Do not maltreat him, for a rich man among the people is now with Pilate to offer him money for the corpse, that he may give it decent burial." And he says, "My brothers, I must here inform you that Pilate often did sell the bodies of the crucified to their friends, that they might thus bury him." And the centurion was friendly to him, inasmuch as he had conceived from the events that Jesus was an innocent man. And therefore, when 2 thieves were beaten by the soldiers with heavy clubs and their bones broken, the centurion went past the cross of Jesus, saying to the soldiers, "Do not break his bones, for he is dead." And a man was seen rapidly approaching along the road from the castle of Antonia to Calvary. He advanced to the centurion and brought to him the order that he should quickly come to Pilate. Pilate. The centurion then questioned the messenger to learn what Pilate wanted or Pilate wanted of him at so late an hour of the night. The messenger answered that Pilate desired to know if Jesus was indeed dead. So he is, said the centurion. Therefore we have not broken his bones. To be the more sure of it, one of the soldiers struck a spear into the body in such manner that it passed over the hip and into the side. The body showed no convulsions, and this was taken by the centurion as a sure sign that he actually was dead, and he hurriedly went away to make his report. Apparently, but the blood fell on this Roman that did it, and his eyes were open, and he realised this person on the cross was the Son of God. He felt his power through the blood of water or something like that. So it looks like that was just a myth added or something added. Okay, but from the insignificant wound flowed blood and water, at which John wondered, and his own letter writer own hope revived. For even John knew from the knowledge of the Brotherhood that from a wound in a dead body flows nothing but a few drops of thickened blood. But now there flowed both water and blood. He was deeply anxious that Joseph and Nicodemus should return. At last some Galilean woman was seen approaching, and they returned from Bethania, whither they had brought Mary, mother of Jesus, in the care of the Esseer friends and their saints. The Brotherhood, right? Because of the Brotherhood. And among the women was also Mary, sister of Lazarus, who had loved Jesus and she wept loudly. Okay, carries on. Okay, and they took him down off the cross. They added spices and healing salves on long pieces of byssus which he had bought, and whose use was known only in the order, the Brotherhood. These spices and salves had great healing power and were used by the Esseer brethren, the Essenes, who knew the rules of medical science for the restoration of consciousness of those in a state of death like fainting. And even as Joseph and Nicodemus were bending over his face and their tears fell upon him, they blew into him their own breath and warmed his temples. Still, Joseph was doubtful of his recovery to life, but Nicodemus encouraged him to increase the efforts. Nicodemus spread balsam in both the nail-pierced hands, but he believed that it was not best to close up the wounds on Jesus' side, because he considered the flow of blood and water therefrom helpful to respiration and beneficial in the renewing of life. And he laid the body in the tomb. He smoked the grotto or that tomb with aloe, like you do when you're cleansing a house. A lot of people use that certain herb, maybe sage, to remove it of evil, ghosts and all that sort of stuff. They used aloe. They put a large stone in front of the entrance that the vapours might better fill the grotto. This done, John with some others went to Bethania to comfort his grief-stricken mother. But Caiaphas, although it was the Sabbath day, had sent out secret spies, his informants. He was anxious to know who were the secret friends of Jesus. His suspicions had fallen upon Pilate because of his having given Joseph of Arimathea the body without any payment. He, being rich, a rabbi and a member of the High Council, who never had appeared to take any interest in the case of Jesus previously, but who now had given his own place of burial for the crucified. And so it was that Caiaphas anticipated secret plans between the rich Joseph and the Galileans, and knowing that they intended to embalm the body, had hoped there to catch them, and as the idea had occurred to him that Joseph and Pilate were plotting against the Jews. Fear of this caused him great anxiety, and for this reason he hoped to discover some secret means of accusing Joseph and having him thrown into prison. He betrayed this fact himself by sending late in the night a number of his armed servants to an obscure valley close by the grotto in which lay the body of Jesus. Some distance from them was stationed a detachment of temple guard to assist the servants of the high priest if necessary. But the rumour has told you that this guard were Roman soldiers, which was not the case. The high priest even distrusted Pilate, and so forth. Okay, some more information here. Nicodemus, who was an experienced physician, and said on the way to the tomb, I guess, that the peculiar condition of the atmosphere caused by the revolution of the elements was beneficial to Jesus, and that he never had believed that Jesus really was dead. And he further said that the blood and water which flowed from the wound was a sure sign that life was not extinct. And again, they arrived at the grotto, and they were all 24 brothers of the Brotherhood in the first degree, etc., etc. Okay, and making out that Jesus didn't actually die here. After the business wrappings had been taken off and the muck ender was removed from his head, Joseph spoke and said, "This is not a place in which to remain longer, for here the enemies might easily discover our secret and betray us." But Jesus was not yet strong enough to walk far, wherefore he was conducted to the house that belonged to the order that is close by Calvary, in the garden which also belonged to the Brotherhood. They tried to annihilate every trace of the biases, wrappings and the medicines and drugs used, so no one would have a clue, right? What actually went on. So Jesus was supposedly resting up somewhere. He's too weak to walk. Okay, but Jesus was moved by a great desire to prove to his friends that he still lived. Impelled by this desire and feeling himself refreshed and strengthened, he asked for clothes that he might go forth among his friends. He was immediately clothed in the Esseer working garb, such as the brethren wear when at work. In this dress he appeared as a gardener. In the meantime, the two young brothers had gone again to the grave, as their work there was not yet completed. While there they saw the same woman return who came first to the grave, as John and Peter meanwhile had made known among the disciples what had come to pass. This woman, thus returning to the grave, thought the two novices were angels guarding the empty grave, and she wept. So forth. Okay, so this is like very, very different to the Gospels, to the Americanized English versions, Bible versions, and also to the original ancient, very old Aramaic, Galilean Aramaic New Testament. So yeah, we sort of taken this with a grain of salt. We think it's maybe not the real deal, but yeah, we'd have to find evidence to prove that. People will say, oh, it doesn't match the scriptures in your ancient version or even in your modern version, so it's a load of rubbish, it's a big lie, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, okay, maybe you can find online the actual one copy of that letter, right? But people would still say, oh no, it's rubbish, it's fraud, it's a scam, it's a whole lot of rubbish, garbage, etc. Okay, so it's giving great detail what actually went on. Some similarity to the Bible report, but yeah, to take some more study on it and try to find out if it's actually true or not, because you can't find the information on it. So we'll keep looking, and we'll probably make another video at some point that verifies it's a load of rubbish, but that it's 100% true. something interesting to read, something different. Claimed. Caiaphas, the high priest, had been informed that Jesus had been seen in Jerusalem, and he had spread the rumour that the disciples had stolen the body of Jesus and had invented a miraculous story. But there were many among the people in the city who believed that Jesus had risen by the hand of God, and these commenced to complain of the injustice done to him and to believe in his doctrines. And the high priest feared a revolution among the people, and believed that the Galileans were intending to overthrow the government and set up a new ruler. He was therefore suspicious and watchful. In the evening of the same day came Nicodemus to the Brotherhood, and brought them the information that Joseph of Arimathea had been arrested, and that they falsely attributed to him criminal purposes, and that he had been in secret association with Jesus. He had been fraudulent. Whereupon great anxiety arose among the brethren, for they feared that also Jesus had been arrested, inasmuch as he had not been seen by any of them since the evening when he convinced Thomas. Okay, and then the elders met in council, and it was agreed that they should search for Jesus and use all efforts to liberate or free Joseph, and so forth. Okay. Many of those who came were moved only by the spirit of wonder. They had come therefore to see Jesus do wonders and perform miracles. Others hoped for the coming of the new kingdom of Messiahs and the deliverance of the Jews from the Romans. Jesus was sorely grieved in his heart by these interpretations of his mission, for often he had spoken of these things, saying that to his disciples that it was not meet that the Son of God should be clothed with worldly power and splendour. It wasn't something that he should take on. But the Esseer, or the Essene brethren, understood and did not share in these errors, for they well knew that according to the laws of the order of the Brotherhood which he had vowed to keep, their brethren could take no part in matters of state nor aspire to worldly power. They can't interfere in what was happening to him at the crucifixion was. Very interesting. In the city arose a rumour that Jesus was taken up in a cloud and he had gone to heaven. This was invented by the people who had not been present when Jesus departed. The disciples did not contradict this rumour, inasmuch as it served to strengthen the doctrine and influence the people who wanted a miracle in order to believe in him. John, who was present, knew all of these things, but he had not spoken nor written anything about it. Likewise Matthew. There are others who have gathered the rumours thereof into an illustration, which they believed themselves, as they were moved by the Spirit to glorify Jesus. Closing remarks of the German translator. For an enlightened Christian, it will be a holy, that means a wholesome, indifferent whether the life of Jesus as recorded by the Gospel has any historical foundation or not. It remains a scientific problem whether Jesus really died on the cross or was taken down only apparently dead, and not a religious one. For in the moral world, the very determination to die for truth and virtue ought to be considered as highly as the physical death. The intelligent man that has made the thought clear through science and study and overcome the superstition of tradition may be a true defender of the Christian spirit, if he even doubts everything in the gospel that appears to him in any way mythical or inexplicable. But there are men to whom only that is holy that they cannot explain or comprehend themselves, and others again who will try to lull their own minds into tranquil faith on undoubted scriptural authority, men that consider the outward events for the aim of Jesus' life and keep their minds chained down to a dead literal faith. Further, there are persons who, through their simplicity of mind and education, simpletons, do not ponder on the subject at all, who consider sinful every examination into the ideas prevailing in past centuries. There are also persons who keep others in ignorance, that they may not examine into the account of the miracles. All such persons are not true defenders of the Christian spirit, and that therein contain moral liberty of thought. Such persons will never take a step toward the improvement of the Christian spirit in the external life, and it is just therein Christianity ought to appear, not therein that many absorb themselves in their own selfish conceits, accepting the spirit without doing anything themselves. No, the Christian spirit ought to be introduced into the actual ever-changing life, to be modified to the wants of the everyday life. So it should be flexible. It should be like water, right? Yeah. Basically, if you understand that Bruce Lee concept, yeah, it should flow. You shouldn't have to think about it, right? Etc. etc. You should naturally, inwardly, outwardly be kind to someone on the street that needs feed, that needs something to eat, needs some clothing, needs some shoes. You know, an old lady walking across the street in busy traffic. Having pity on those who might have a deformity, might have disease, right? You're kind to every person that you see. You're not like a hard-ass A-hat, you know, that doesn't care. He makes out he's a Christian, but he's a role-player actor, right? It's all about them. It's gimme, gimme, gimme. All they do is spend their days in church, you know. Where there's a guy outside, maybe they've got a 5-bedroom mansion or something like that, you know, garage, all that sort of stuff, 21 toilets or whatever, and there's a poor guy in the alleyway, right? Maybe a ex-Afghanistan vet, suffering, probably an addiction, all that sort of stuff, and they walk past him and like walk on the other side of the road. It's like that Levite, is it Levite priest? In Samaritan, the Levite priest that saw this injured man just walked across the other side of the street and walked on. Okay? Yeah, it's like either do something about it. How can you like see that and then walk on? You know, like give some help. It's understandable because people like they use you, abuse you. They just want their dollar for their addiction, be it drugs, weed, or alcohol, or something like that. Yeah, and a lot of them are charlatans out there doing that, making a lot of money off other people, right? To buy their addictions. You just got to be wary. Okay, like Christ said, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. Okay, give in charity. You know, you're aware that these people might be using and abusing you, right? Spending it on collecting and spending it on addictions. But you pray for those people, right? If you've got that funny feeling, you give anyway. People go, oh, you're a sucker and all that sort of stuff. This guy's always making up that he's got no money, he needs to feed, all that sort of stuff. Even people on a bus, they try to get a free ride. And you've got a spare card or something, you know, because here we've got to use a card to get on the bus and get off the bus, sort of thing. They don't have money exchange. They don't exchange money anyway. They don't pay money to get on the bus, you know, have a ride, get this card, right? You might have a spare one, and somebody goes, oh damn, my thing's stuffed, something wrong with it, so you clock them on, right? Some people do tricks, you know, oh, make out, you know, because the bus driver will tell you, oh, they do this all the time. Why are you helping that guy? Who cares, bro? the bus is stuck, it's not moving. There's people here moaning and groaning, they've got to get to work, they're going to be late and stuff. Let's make the bus move. Here you go, ding ding, off you go. And it carries on, carries on. Look at it, you're making a big scene out of it. Just drive the damn bus, get these people to wherever they're going, right? I clocked the dude on. You know, and then afterwards they're like, why did you do that? I'm going, I'm mean to you. Bro, the bus was sitting there, people were moaning, groaning, oh, to get to work, oh, I was be late, la 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 la, all that sort of stuff. So they had a spare card, $5 or $10 or whatever on it, bing bing, got him. The guy on the thing got you moving, yeah. Now he's off the bus, but then this guy got off the bus and tapped on the doors and gave the bus driver the fingers, yeah, all that sort of stuff. See, that's what these people do. You're worrying about it, bro. He's gone, you know. He's off the bus, drive on, yeah. Okay, yeah, this is quite lengthy, a book. It has a lot of information here. Okay, some more for the everyday Christian here. Okay. Really good to read that. In the old letter it is recorded that he did not die on the cross but passed into unconsciousness. Even the way in which Jesus appeared to die on the cross makes that probability of apparent death possible. First he lost his consciousness very early, so that even Pilate doubted his death, and before he allowed him taken down from the cross he ordered the Roman centurion to convince himself thereof. Secondly, by the then existing mode of crucifixion, was it not uncommon that the crucified could be brought to life? Well, he smacked their legs with a piece of wood and smashes their legs, or they're going to be in pain, aren't they? So they're going to go, oh my gosh, you're breaking my legs. Sign that they're alive. Also informed by the historians of that date that it was not an uncommon thing that crucified criminals were brought back to life after being taken down from the cross. It is also proved that these unfortunates among nations that did not have the Jewish custom of not allowing the crucified to hang on the cross overnight, because the Sabbath was approaching, all that sort of stuff, often would hang on the cross 8 or 9 days before death, at last put an end to their dreadful suffering. Someone come and run through with a spear or something like that. Okay. And so forth. So we hope that you enjoyed this video, though rather long. We may cut it into parts. We may leave a full version, you may be cut it into parts, so it makes it easier for you to listen to it. Yeah, so thank you for taking the time to watch our latest video upload. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, subscribe to our channel. If we have a notification button or bell, push that so you'll never miss out on any of our videos. Give us a like or a thumbs up in the edge of comments below the video. We'll get back to you on those as soon as possible. And then go share this video with your friends, family, other Christians, etc. who, you can sit down and discuss it. Say, well, this is my opinion of it. I think it's fake. I think it's a load of rubbish. You know, it's a good conversation starter, right? It could also cause heated arguments. Someone will go, oh, but in the Bible, you know, it says, you know. Someone else will go, no, but in my King James it says, oh, but in my ESV it says, you know, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, it's a good conversation piece. So again, subscribe to our channel, give us a like, give us a thumbs up, add your comments below the video, we'll get back to you on those, and then share this video with your family, friends and others.